lives in Nashville. He went to Dalton. Not the joke. But then he ended up going to ACS. I think we're good. Parents live in Germantown. I just gotta get everybody on Wi-Fi now because the password's been changed.
Check.
Including myself.
Luke, you like your alarm. You just go ahead and log in real quick to me so I can make sure. Yeah, how do you stand this up? I don't want to turn it off.
Fine.
I guess it should remember. It shouldn't matter. Just like that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it complicated. I'm trying to make it complicated. Sorry.
Testing.
You have Miss Parker? Miss Parker?
Come on.
You're good. Okay.
Miss Parker, Mr.
What's the
Grayson,
picture?
use your computer or your laptop.
Oh, it's streaming. Okay. It's not. Well, it's not streaming. It's like frozen.
Are we doing live? Is it streaming live or is it?
Yes, he's got it streaming.
How are you?
There we go. Pretty cool.
Very busy. I agree.
Uh,
Was it that grandbaby over spring? No.
What's your password? Or do you want to log in?
Yes. That's it.
No one would ever figure that out.
Mason, if they want to follow it, they'll have to stream it.
It's going to be at the GMTV. It's going to be the YouTube channel GMTV. And I think Kate's going to throw it out on Facebook. But I think she has already, actually.
Mr. Kathy.
From you all day, Suzanne. Oh, I thought he was awesome. I always have to get out of Suzanne's way.
No, he's good.
Do we have to turn them on?
Thank
No,
you.
he's just going to turn up the volume.
He is my 2-year-old grandson.
No, but I think the mic
That
has
was
to be turned.
this winter, so he wasn't quite
It's
there
on.
yet. He's took a growth spurt, so.
I gotta get you in first.
He is all boy. His mother is from a family.
Good evening, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and get started.
I know.
Okay. First on our agenda tonight is the update on life insurance benefits. Mr. Haddow?
Yes, good evening. What you have in front of you is a handout. And the handout, if you read through it, I'm going to give you a brief history. Every few years, we have to rebid our different products that we offer with regards to insurance and benefits. This bid process is something that the board contributes towards based on our policy in the excerpt which you read there. That's just nothing's changed with that. That's just to refresh your memory. There are a couple rates and there are a couple bidders. I would say if you look at the number of bidders, it appears that there were at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bidders on this product. The one that you don't see is the one at the bottom that I'm going to talk about, and it's the one that we selected. It's the Dearborn rates. So if you're following the handout, you have the policy excerpt, the bidders, the Dearborn rates, and what you're actually bidding on is life and also accident and death dismemberment. So that AD&D is how they define that term. The sample and the cost is based on the highest paid teaching rate. Now, granted, not everyone makes $72,000, but we did the highest rate with the formula based on the cost associated and the rate that Dearborn bidded. And they came in the lowest. Our current provider is Standard, and I did a comparison based on a projected annual premium. Dearborn came in at $70,000 to the cost to the system and premiums, and Standard came in at $75,000 with the cost of the premiums. Those premiums were, in this whole process, I do have to take my hat off to our consultant. It's through ESP. They're up in Nashville, and they've always been our consultant with bids and what have you. Her name is Brittany and Bob. It's Bob Shoup and Brittany Sprawling. And Brittany was kind of the leverage and the critical player behind all this.
Make sure you're
Can you guys hear me down there? Oh, that's better. Sorry about that, audience. Do you want me to rehash what I just said? It's a bid process. So in the bid process, just note the recommendation because of cost and also the service that's being provided is the same, but Dearborn came in under. And looking at Dearborn, the questions on the references were checked through Brittany, who's the consultant. She said there are fine references. Their business rating is also the highest rating. I think it's the A rating is how they do it. On a sidebar note, and I did not know this until talking to the Dearborn sales executive rep behind all this, it helps that he went to Dogwood, but he is in Nashville. His parents still live in Germantown, so there is some connectivity with these people. But obviously we did not know that when we went through the bid process. So I wanted to give you an update on it, just as for information's sake, based on the price and where we're on it. Future plans is there are some other benefits that were also bidded, but they're voluntary benefits, and just as for information's sake, for it being information, Delta Dental is going to be utilized for our employees to elect whether or not to choose that benefit, because it is voluntary, and Davis Vision, who they've used before, has also been selected. Those were the three products that had to be bid as we break away from shared services.
And I'll clarify, so for all teachers, they have the choice of taking extra insurance. They do not have to take that, and like Mr. Haddo said, there's no cost to the district for them to pick up dental insurance or for them to pick up vision insurance. This is the only one that has an impact as far as district is concerned, district budget is concerned. And you'll see this built into our projections for costs when we develop our budget, so we have built this into the cost.
And this is the coverage we have
Yes.
currently.
Any other questions on insurance? Thank you, Mr. Haddo.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the board resolution opposing vouchers. I want to thank Ms. Landers for writing our resolution. Ms. Landers, did you have anything you wanted to add, discussion-wise?
Discussion-wise. I hope this resolution meets the expectations that the board set forth. And much thanks goes to the staff and to the superintendent for their help. His op-ed piece was a wonderful guiding principle in talking about the accountability piece that is missing when we're talking about vouchers. I do, if any of the board would like to see it, I do have a file folder of all of the background information that went into all of the whereas statements. So just so long you know that everything was researched and noted.
Is there any other discussion? I know that as a board, we strongly oppose any legislation for school vouchers and opportunity scholarships. And as a board, we had discussed at a previous work session that we would have Ms. Landers prepare this resolution for us. So if there's no other comments or concerns,
I just thought I would give an update. Today, there was an amendment to the current voucher bill. Maybe I should preface it with, I think this is absolutely the right move for us to do, especially given the environment that we're in right now. Last week, the bill, known as the Kelsey bill, was actually put out into government ops. There's a lot of lively discussion. It went back into session today, and it was amended. And it was amended to allow either Tennessee Ready testing or nationally normed testing, which I think, takes away a little bit of the hesitancy of some of the the Catholic schools. But anyway, so it's still hot, it's still changing, we need to keep our eye on the ball, and I think this will go a long way in helping us make our statement. So thank you very much, Ms. Landers, for pulling that together.
Any other comments? And I meant to, I apologize, I meant to, at the beginning, tell you that Ms. Oaf was delayed, and she sends her sincere apologies. She is going to try to be here. Sorry, I meant to mention that ahead. Anything else on vouchers? Next on our agenda is awarding of the bid for the purchase and delivery of the HVAC rooftop units at Houston High School. Mr. Cathy?
Yes, thank you. We bid this out. We had 4 respondents to the bid. We are recommending actually a split award on this, with M&A Supply being awarded items 1 through 23, as they were the low bidder on those items, which is the 138 rooftop units that we are purchasing and replacing. We are recommending that Mills Wilson George be awarded the exhaust fans, as well as the exhaust fans, and item number 24, which is an Aon unit, which is a little bit of an oddity. But they were the only ones that bid those items, and we do need to replace them. So we're recommending that they get those 2, and M&A Supply be awarded items 1 through 23, as well as the curb adapters. We also do have to do powered convenience outlets. Code requires those every 25 feet. So we didn't know exactly how many we needed there, so we got a unit pricing for that. So that is our recommendation for this bid, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
One quick question. Is that partial roofing that we're doing, does it cover the auditorium?
It does not cover the auditorium. The areas that were included in the roofing project were the area that is north of the main entrance, as well as the gym and the band room. Those are the areas that were covered in that.
Any other questions for Mr. Cathy?
I thought it was very well done.
Yes,
Thank
it was
you.
very
Very
detailed.
thorough.
Very
Mhm.
detailed,
Yeah.
thank you.
Very detailed.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda is the awarding of the bid for the HVAC installations at Houston High School. Mr. Cathy?
Yes, and just to clarify why we bid these out separately, purchasing the units as the district gives us the ability to buy directly from the distributor. It saves the 9.75% sales tax on a $400,000+ purchase. It's a significant savings to the district, as well as a 15 to 20% contractor markup on top of that. So that is why we bid the installation and the purchase of the units separately. This bid package for the installation of the units, we did have 3 respondents. Damon Marcus was the low respondent, and that is who we are recommending for the install of the rooftop units. I'll be happy to answer any questions about that as well.
Any questions for Mr. Cathy?
Again, you gave us all the information we needed to make a decision, so thank you for that.
Was there anything when you were going through the process that, that concerned you at all about any of the bidders, or anything that
No.
we should know about?
No, Damon
Okay.
Marcus, we've had do work for the district before, and
Yeah.
they've done very good and quality
Okay.
work. And we've worked with M&A Supply in the past as well, and they've been timely in doing work, and they've done quality work. So
Great.
no,
Good history.
good history.
Okay.
No concerns on our end.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Cathy? Next on the agenda is awarding of the bid for painting at Farmington Elementary School. Mr. Cathy?
On this one, we had 2 respondents. We actually had 7 show up to the pre-bid meeting. A lot of them did express concern about the tight timeline in order to be able to turn this around. We give them 7 weeks during the summer until July 21st, and all of our bids have liquidated damages after that if they don't complete the work by that date, where they have to start paying back. So we only had 2 respondents that felt like they could meet the timeline on this bid package. And Brandon Construction was by far the low respondent on this bid package, and that's who we're recommending for award.
And just so everyone knows, this is for the painting at Farmington Elementary inside and out.
Correct.
And you also gave a very detailed
Yes.
outline of what is being painted, what stripes, what colors. My one question is, there was a big difference
Yes.
in the pricing.
Yes, there was.
Yes.
Do you have some background history on the people that you selected?
The Brandon Construction is, they do a lot of different work. They do a lot of steel work for construction. They're a lot of times a subcontractor. They're a minority-owned, veteran-owned company, and we did check references. The references that were provided, we asked that 5 references be provided for this bid, and we didn't find anything in the reference checks that would deter us from using this company.
Have they done a job of this size and magnitude before?
They have.
Okay.
They have. But the tight timeline always concerns me during
Sure,
the summer.
yeah.
Especially with painting, there's just so much prep work and involvement and just a lot of work to be done in a short amount of time, so.
And I could have missed it because there was a lot of detail in the painting. Is there a kind of a quality component to it as far as what your expectations are as far as, neatness and cleanliness and things of that nature? Like, are they cleaning off the places, not just peeling off the paint, but getting the layers of dirt that might be there before they paint?
They're power washing, aren't they?
Yes, they're power washing.
More inside?
Yeah, inside and out.
Oh, wow, okay.
And every product that can be used is specified in the bid package.
Perfect.
So, yeah, the quality assurance piece is there in the bid
Okay.
package.
Thank you.
Again, it was very detailed.
Yes.
Thank you. Any more questions on the awarding of the bid for painting at Farmington Elementary for Mr. Cathy?
No, it was very detailed, very good.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the resolution for negotiating the purchase of Germantown Elementary and Germantown Middle Schools. I'll start off with the purpose of the resolution is really just to confirm to our community that we are serious about obtaining our heritage schools, especially since tonight we'll be voting on a land and possibly building a school. And so I think we need to let the community know that we are serious in that we will be first attempting again or negotiating to obtain our heritage schools.
And I'll take the lead then. We created a timeline for the board, if you pass that down. Just so that so everybody can be on the same page and that we're all caught up. And also this is for the public's view too, about what we have done so far to try to get Germantown Elementary School and Middle School back since I was hired as superintendent. So year 1. Okay, so I think it was in the very first week that I was hired as superintendent. The school board, prior to my being hired, had selected Mr. Hoover to go out and negotiate for Germantown Elementary School. And so I actually met with Stephen Shields at the office. It was one of my first tasks as superintendent. And we were working on what type of offer could we provide to Shelby County Schools for Germantown Elementary School. Then Mr. Hoover and myself actually went down to Shelby County Schools, met with Superintendent Hobson, and I think y'all have heard me tell this story before where we're saying, let's talk about the money, let's talk about the students, let's talk about the teachers. Whatever would work for Shelby County Schools, we would be willing to go into an agreement with, and that still stands today, that we're willing to, I guess, partner with them on what we're doing with students. And at that time, Superintendent Hobson walked over, and he pulled the curtain back, and all the parents were out there in the tents, out there on the lawns by Shelby County Schools, and he said, as long as I have these parents who are willing to come to our optional schools, Germantown Elementary School has value for me. They're willing to camp out to be able to attend this school. And that being said, they were unwilling to negotiate at that time for Germantown Elementary School. Shortly after that, the city administration worked out a partnership with them, and I think they're still, I think it's an annual contract that they actually renew every year with Shelby County Schools for the ball fields. They have school resource officers in Germantown Elementary, Middle, and High School, the crossing guards at all those schools. So I think the city is trying to show that they're willing to work with Shelby County Schools for this. Then year 2 came along, and we actually looked at their 2015 fiscal report, and I think, Ms. Jones, I gave you a copy of this that we had provided them that has the geocoding, and it also has their capacity numbers at each of their schools. I think the other board members had previously had that document. But what we were trying to show them was that several of their schools in the area were below capacity, and that by keeping the students closer to where they actually live, there are schools that were under capacity that those students could attend. And then for Shelby County Schools, there would be over $1 million savings every year just in the administration, the utility cost. So we're trying to create a win-win situation for Shelby County Schools and for us in order to get Germantown Elementary School back. And then also Linda Fisher shared with Ms. Jones, who was at that time the board chair for Shelby County Schools, the same documents, trying to show that we kind of were trying to create a solution that would be successful for both of us. And at that time, they were unwilling to negotiate. Then GMSD and the city administration began working with Shelby County Commissioner Mark Billingsley because they were going through their budget process for Shelby County Schools. And Mr. Billingsley was very helpful, or Commissioner Billingsley, sorry. And at that time, what he was saying was, let's work out a win-win for both of us. They had an $8 million shortfall in their district. And what we were saying with the city was that we could make up that difference. And whether it was 1, 2 years, what it would take to pay off that school, we were really willing to help their operating costs, offset their operating costs for that. And he actually made a recommendation during their budget session down at the county commission to do that. Now, I don't know if you all paid attention to the paper at that time. They had lots of parents who came down and said, fully fund our schools. And so the Shelby County Commission decided, instead of allowing us to make up that shortfall, they said that they would pull from their reserves to actually fund Shelby County schools. So they weren't willing to negotiate at that time either. And then the city made a written offer for GMS after that. I think they offered $5 million for Germantown Elementary and for Germantown Middle School. And Shelby County did not negotiate on that offer. Then it brings us to this year. At the beginning of this school year, Linda Fisher and I actually went and had breakfast with Chris Caldwell, and we were talking about what are the chances, again, that we need to renew this conversation. We still want Germantown Elementary and Middle School. What can we do to get these schools back with us? And at that time, he said they really hadn't discussed it as a board yet with Shelby County Schools, and that he would want to take guidance from his superintendent. And so then after that, he asked that the two things that were really holding them up was he said they'd engaged Fleming Architect firm to actually do a complete footprint analysis of all of Shelby County schools. And what he said was they didn't want to just talk about Germantown Elementary School in isolation or Germantown Middle School in isolation. They wanted to look at the whole footprint of Shelby County schools. And so at that time, he wanted to wait till we had, I guess, their budget meeting. And so he actually set the discussions to resume May 2nd. And that brings us to today, where we actually are asking to do a resolution to say, let's go ahead and continue these negotiations. We're serious about these negotiations. And I think I've told y'all before, I would prefer to have Germantown Elementary School over having a new school. My big fear is that's the one thing that we can't control. That's the one that's in Shelby County's control. They have to be willing to negotiate and work with us. So that's why all along we've been operating on this dual path process where we're looking at land sites. You know, we're going to talk in just a minute about all the work that we've done to choose the site. That's because we knew that that's something that we can control. We can control where we build a new school. So it is our recommendation that we continue on this dual path process of design and construction along with the discussions for Germantown Elementary School, because at the end of the day, once again, we can't control that, and they may be unwilling to negotiate again. But I am optimistic. I think Ms. Fisher will tell you that our breakfast with Chris Caldwell was promising. He didn't close the door and say that it wasn't something that we would talk about. So I can still be optimistic that we'll get that school back.
I'm more optimistic, and this is the first time they've actually been willing to have discussions. And so again, I'm optimistic.
So I hope that kind of gives us history of where we've been with negotiations and.
Can I
where
ask
we
a
went.
question just about the dates? So
Sure.
in the 2015-16 year, when the city made the written offer, was that in May?
I think so. I think that was at the end of the year.
2016?
Because it was because it was after the budget process for Shelby County Schools. So we were attending the county commission and Shelby County Schools
Okay.
joint budget meetings. And so that's when they made that. So I think it's may have been late May.
Okay.
It could have been June.
Okay. And then when was the breakfast in 2016-17?
Oh, gosh, I'd have to look at my calendar.
It was the beginning of the school year. So
It
it was not August, I would say
No,
closer.
it was,
September, October.
no, it was a little later.
Was it later?
It was
Was that the same conversation that we talked about at the legislative breakfast?
Yeah.
Yes.
So then that would have
It was
probably been
November.
December
It was
because we
November.
had the,
It was beginning of December. It was after
Okay.
the election.
okay,
So
okay.
it had to be
okay.
then, it was after the election.
Okay.
Because remember we saw Nishwitz.
Oh, that's right. We saw Dave, yeah.
And then beginning to work with the mayor, that would have been probably the February timeframe? I'm just trying to put dates with these, just to kind of
Sure.
see the progression.
Yeah, I think it was probably around it was probably around the same time that because the mayor, I think, has a friendship with Mr. Caldwell.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
I really attribute to him the fact that he did open the door for us and said, hey, you should go to breakfast with Mr. Caldwell. I think he's open to discussions with you. And so then after that, I know that Mr. Caldwell is working on a plan and Shelby County Schools is working on a plan. They've asked Shelby County Commission for 2 elementary schools currently, I think, for $48 million total for those 2 schools, and they're asking for more. So I know that that was around the same time, so
Which would be February, January?
probably January, February,
Okay.
both.
And so this is the up-to-date, I mean, since Chris said we'll get back together. has
We
there been
actually
any-
have, I know I got an email today about a meeting with Dorsey Hobson on May
Okay,
2nd. In
okay.
fact, it's going to be during our board retreat, so we're going to have to make some adjustments.
So the way
I'm
that,
sure we could,
remember, you and I had been talking about that we
Yes.
want to have a meeting prior to when they conclude their budget. So
Right.
this is that attempt to do that. So
oh, good, good.
we do want to have a meeting to talk about the school side of things. And really, it's that we're open to work with whatever they want to do as far as transfer students. If they want to say, don't allow transfers from the school, you want them to attend the schools that they're zoned for, we're willing to do that. If they want to be possessive of their teaching staff and they want to keep that teaching
Mm-hmm.
staff, we're willing to work with them on that side of things. Because for us, we have teachers that we're going to want to
Right.
move to that
Right.
school. We have
Right.
students that we want to move to the building
Right.
for us. So that's really the discussion that we need to have prior to that May meeting.
Right.
Any more questions?
I have a few. So what has changed is really nothing in what the intent is to negotiate. It's more just to allow us to communicate to Shelby County that we still have a vested interest and are still very committed. Is
Yes,
that-
well, and I think it's also to let our community know that we have a vested interest.
Okay.
Because tonight, we are voting on property to build a school.
Right,
And we don't want to send a message to the community that we are dropping our intent to continue negotiating.
okay.
So really, the intent of this is just to let the community know that we are going to take this seriously as we move forward, even though we are going to be voting on a contract to purchase land tonight.
Right. Would there be, when you look at the structure of all the legal opinions that we've gotten, and that the school board is has the complete authority in this area, yet we still need to make sure that we walk lockstep with our city and from a funding perspective, should we have someone in the negotiation team that is part of the funding body? Somebody that actually is a voting member that can vote from a funding perspective that's engaged in that? Would there be benefit in that?
Well, I think and I can't speak for the mayor and board and alderman, but before they come with a price, they're going to have to meet and vote on it.
Oh, I don't
And so-
disagree.
So it will be mayor and board of aldermen, well, not the mayor doesn't vote, but the board of aldermen decision on the amount of funds that they're willing to put forward.
And I think Ms. Owens has an important point that even having one voting member on that commission or that committee would not help us because they have to act as a body the same as your board does. Right,
Yeah, no,
so
no,
they-
just more from a keeping them apprised, so that they would have a liaison to their board that could say, this is how things are going, but also, I think there's a lot of relationships with some of the board, the aldermen, that could potentially really help. I mean, if we're looking to really ramp up our strategy and looking at things maybe a little bit differently than we have in the past as far as, different ways to have conversations, would it help to have someone that has some experience with them?
Well, I think, obviously Alderman Gibson
Yes,
sat on the Shelby County School
Yes.
Board and has a good relationship with the superintendent and the board. She has been working all along with us, and I think she'll continue to do that.
would it be reasonable to add her as a part of that team if we're setting that out?
Have we asked her?
I don't know. I haven't asked her.
Are you wanting to eliminate somebody and add her?
I mean, I think, we can. I think that if you look at the group that's there, by default, the city administrator will always be involved because he's kind of that coordinator behind the scenes. Would we put an alderman and the mayor together as the team? If you're concerned about too many people on the team.
I don't have any problem in adding Ms. Gibson. Again, she's been working all along with us and will continue. But I think, I can't speak for her.
I don't disagree.
But we will make that, we'll make that request. I would be very open. She's always been very helpful in her, like you said, relationships with Shelby County Schools because she did serve on that board and also with Superintendent Hobson. So
Would that be something that, and again, I don't know the parliamentarian type, do you, if you have a question like that you would like to have answered before you finalize something, do you table this until our April 17th meeting? Knowing that it's already out in the public, that we're working on it, we just need to finalize who what the team's gonna be?
I'll be glad to contact her before we vote on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure get a hold of her. You gonna text her?
Yeah, I'll text her.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Manuel or I, one of us will text Ms. Gibson
And I'll speak to her in between.
our board meeting and work session. Any other comments? Next on the agenda is approval of land purchase for the new school.
You have the contract that's before you. I'll highlight a couple things that are in that contract. We do have a presentation for the audience when we, I don't want to do it twice because we'll wait. Because I don't want to go through the whole thing twice. You'll see it. Really, it's a history of what we have done, and a lot of the people in the audience have either come to our forums or participated in the surveys or served on the site analysis committee. That's the presentation tonight, to really talk about the process that the school board went to. I'm excited about how it worked, and I really feel comfortable with the selection that we're asking the board to vote on because of the engagement with the community. I think it was so involved that I think this board could actually win awards for the level of commitment, the level of information that they put into this process to choose the site. We will highlight some of the processes that we went through. Ms. Landers, you can help with this too. But if you look in the contract, it really is a purchase price of $3.1 million. We feel that it was a comparable price based on the property, the Reeves property, which was right next door, which was listed at 2.9. It was 2 less acres. It was right next to the railroad tracks. And all of y'all, we took the board and we walked the properties. And you know that there's that feeling when you go into the right house, when you're buying a house, and you just feel this is the one. I think our board felt that when we were out on the Brower-Schaefer property. We do have outs, and that was one of the things that we built into this contract. Now, we do have exposure financially, and that's in order to lock in the price, so I will highlight those things. We will have to put down $30,000, which is the earnest money that we put down to lock in this price. That gives us a 90-day front window to do all the soil test evaluations if something came back wrong with the property. So if there was toxic waste or if there was some issue with that property, we would only be out $100. That's the money that we would lose. But if, for example, Germantown Elementary comes on the table, we would lose that earnest money. At the end of that, we have one period that we can
Can you say
continue
that
it.
one more time?
Yes.
About
So if there was something wrong with the property,
Right.
the exposure for the district would be $100. That's built into the contract. If we just electively choose to get out of this contract, it has a $30,000 clause to it. Ms. Owens actually built into it, and I'm very grateful that we do have one period where we can extend beyond that 90 days for the same amount of money, still the same original $30,000. After that, and if you do the math, we're talking about July by that point where we're starting to decide what we're doing with this property. Once we get into August and September, we're putting down another $30,000 each month after that. We should have, if we do not get Germantown Elementary School back, all the bond money by September. So at that point, we will have paid for this property. The decision will be made in September. But those are the key factors of this contract. And Mr. Cathy also assisted in this, Ms. Owens. If y'all had any questions, we're glad to answer them.
I have just a few questions. And one of them is just more of just something as I was looking at the resolutions and the contract. On the contract, we're called the Germantown Board of Education, but then on the resolution, we're called Germantown Municipal School District Board of Education, and I'm just wondering which is the appropriate title?
Your board policy actually does not specify which is your official title, so either is correct.
Is it okay to have both? I mean, I'm just thinking if we're signing these documents all around the same time, should we be consistent in what we call ourselves?
Sure.
We
But
can
it-
certainly
it's-
change the resolutions.
Legal.
I mean, I don't know, I mean, I've not seen, and it just so happened that I got all these documents at one time. If there's a preference, or if there's something that we've used in the past that we like better, I don't know. Linda, have you?
We can
I would
decide
choose
which
what's
one.
already on the contract that we've negotiated because we
Yes.
can change the resolutions.
Change the resolution.
Well, and I think we're Germantown Board of Education on our website as well.
I think we go by both.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
We don't have a legal.
And the
Nobody else
reason,
goes by it.
the reason it was included, particularly in the resolution on vouchers, is so it would be front and center, that it was the Germantown Municipal School Board of Education that was in opposition. So there wouldn't be any question, even though I mentioned Germantown about 18 times.
Right, right. If there's no legal issue, then I'm not. I just wanted to find out what our name was. So we have no name. There's a song there, I think. Is that me? Maybe my water. You had mentioned that there are the cost, Mr. Manuel, about, what we're going to be incurring along until we can get to a resolution on Germantown schools potentially. Would there be any way that we could just get an estimate sheet on that, so that we all are on the same page? I hear kind of different numbers about, we have the 30,000. If we are able to be successful in our, our offer, what that cost would be?
I can tell you exact amounts.
Okay.
So if we're talking about getting to, we'll say August, end of August,
Sure.
beginning of September, which is when we're talking about that
Yeah.
money being received, going to bond. We're talking about a $30,000 earnest money. We're talking a large amount of money because of the architect fees, because by that time, we will have gone through almost schematic for design for the new school. That's approximately $600,000. Mr. Cathy, you may know the exact amount.
No, that's about right.
Well, that's the requested change that might be.
So I think that is the
Yeah.
majority of the cost, is that we have to go ahead and design. The reason we would do that is, if we don't, then we would not be able to open school for the 1920 school year.
2020.
Yes,
Right.
yes, sorry, yes. So it would, no,
See, there's some question there, because
Yes.
I think when you and I talk, we talk 1920, because we're
Yes.
trying to do it very
yes,
quickly.
so we're talking about
But then
the,
I think it's out in the other things that said it's 2020.
yeah,
So
so
I
we're
think
talking
maybe
about
that's
the
still fine-tuning.
2019-2020 school year.
Okay.
So we're talking about.
A very
we
quick
would-
build.
We would break ground probably around Christmas time this year. So we would be talking about in 17, we would actually break ground. And we're probably talking about a 2-year window, a year and 18-month window. Mr. Cathy, you can contribute?
18 months would be about right, and to answer your question, yes, $30,000 goes at risk if the board approves tonight. When the last signature goes on the contract, $30,000 goes into an escrow account. If there are regions in Section 7, which is their contingencies, or Section 11, if there's a natural disaster or something like
Right,
that that occurs, $100 is the
All
risk
in.
at that point.
Okay.
But if Germantown Elementary becomes an option, or for any reason the board comes back and says, no, we don't want to do this,
Right.
then for the first 90 days, we have $30,000 at risk. Ms. Owen put good language in there to be able to extend that for 30 days with no additional dollars at risk. So still, for the next 120 days, really $30,000 is what's at risk. After that, every 30 days that we extend that, $30,000 more dollars becomes at risk.
Right.
Goes into the escrow account. It will go towards closing unless our board decides for any reason other than what's in this contract to pull out of the contract.
Sure, sure.
The $600,000 architect fees until the city goes to bond is also accurate for the design. The city's timeline they've given us to go to bond is late August, which means we realistically wouldn't see those funds until September. So until then, we're designing the school as we're going down that timeline.
Okay. On the, and Ms. Owen, this might be more of a question for you, but the letters of opinion that you gave to us, more, I guess the memorandum, is this an official letter of opinion?
Yes.
Only, so, just, is this the letterhead for Jackson Shields?
No.
So, I'm sorry, just, I've always seen letters of opinion on letterhead with it signed by attorney with a title, but this is standard procedure for your firm, is to issue letters of opinion in this format?
Mhm.
Okay. Do we need any wording in the contract to talk about the driveway? Or how do we handle the driveway that exists?
There is wording in the contract for the driveway. They do have
And
an
maybe I should
easement.
ask where?
They do have an easement.
An easement? Sorry, could you point me to that?
Okay, yeah, that is on page 3. It's section 5, and it's at the bottom in D. To seller's knowledge, neither the property nor any portion of thereof is or will at the time of closing be subject to a claim of adverse possession, except for an encroachment agreement with respect to a driveway crossing a portion of the Broward Trust property. So that is where that is addressed in the contract.
And what does that mean to us?
What that means is if the current owner that's there retains that property, similar to the agreement that we have with the city right here at Houston High School, where we have to provide them an easement in order for citizens to get back to Houston Levy Park, we would have to provide this citizen an easement in order to be able to get back to his property.
And if I recall correctly, that's kind of towards the edge.
It's right
Right
on the
edge,
it's right on the
okay.
edge before you get to the
and
Reeves
we had talked about
property.
you could put a barrier up there of some sort that could kind of, okay. Thank you for that. In relation to the new school and the new design work that we're doing and the architect fee, would it be possible maybe at the next board meeting just to get an update of that committee and kind of what we've accomplished? Maybe kind of just looking out to your point of, as we go through, just kind of what the big milestones will be.
Sure.
And,
Ms. Landers is our board
yes,
representative, so I'm
yeah.
sure she can give us an update.
Just so we haven't, just kind of know what's. All right, that's all I have.
Are there any other questions on the land purchase for the new school? Next on the agenda is the Budget Amendment 59.
And I'll explain the budget amendment. One of the sources of money that we get is the ADA allotment between Shelby County Schools and ourselves. There's a settling up, so that's average daily attendance. So they take all the students in Shelby County, whether they're in Bartlett schools, Germantown schools, Shelby County schools, Lakeland, Clareville, and they look at the attendance rates for those students, and they compare them to ours, and it's weighted, and so we get a percent of money based on that. So at the end of the year, there's a shoring up based on our attendance rates. And because we do have good attendance rates with our students, we usually get an increase of funding. So what you're seeing with this funding, that's the revenue source for this. We have gotten our statement
Right.
from the trustee that says we're going to get this amount of money. And so what we're asking is to put this money into an account to help pay for the architect costs and everything that's going to be associated with this project.
Any questions for Mr. Jones or Mr. Manuel about the budget amendment?
Were y'all happy with this?
Yes.
Yes, looks like it.
Okay. No further questions? Next, we're going to add a couple things on since we have some time. Oh, we have 1 minute. Okay. Well, we'll make this short.
It feels like longer.
I know, Ms. Jones, you wanted to talk about the partisan election
Yes.
bill?
Yes. It's gaining a little bit of traction, I think most likely because of some of the events surrounding the District 95 within Shelby County. It's taken on a little bit more of a life, and I was talking to Mr. Torres from the TSBA, and he just made the comment that we should be cautious in our dealings within the race and with the candidates from that perspective. And I know that our policy states that as a board member, you're not supposed to, be a part of that. And so I just wanted to find out for us to say, what is being an endorsement, what is not, and what's as a person versus as a board member?
Well,
Just to get
I will
clarity.
just say, as a board, I feel like it is, as a board, we should not be endorsing candidates.
I agree, okay. But is that as individual board members?
And I don't think you should be endorsing as individual board members, but as an individual, you have the right to support whoever you want, whether that's in the form of a vote, stuffing envelopes, a sign.
Writing checks, yard signs, standing on street corners, whatever it is you want to do.
Maybe making sure that we aren't wearing our district gear, do you think, or do you think that matters at all? I don't know, I'm just trying to make sure that we don't do anything that's gonna tip a scale in any way, that's all.
Personally,
Yes,
I do think there's a huge difference between endorse and support, and I know we could probably argue that all day. But I personally would say, after having read the policy, if we're out as Suzanne Jones supporting a candidate, you should not have on your badge it says you're a Germantown School Board member. That would be crossing a line, in my opinion.
okay, I agree.
So I would say, as long as we don't have any district paraphernalia identifying us, and yes, we're known in the community, but I think,
Or we don't sign in as an elected official at an event, or, somehow call attention to that,
right,
to your point.
as
versus
much
we're
as you
just-
could. Sometimes they're not easy.
I was gonna say.
I also talked to Ben Torres this morning.
Mm-hmm.
The bill, the partisan bill, the only thing it has to do with Shelby County is the fact that the bill, I believe Dawn's bill refers to a county of 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing it has to do with Shelby County.
I don't disagree that how it was written. I don't
Okay.
disagree.
It is still a very frivolous, silly, and in my opinion, very stupid bill. But,
You're not getting an argument from me on that.
Okay,
His
okay.
caution was just to make sure that nothing happens, to give them a reason to pull it back in next year. Because I think, as we talked with Representative Brooks and Representative Smith, they have had bad issues and they have had bad blood, and we just don't need anybody else to be able to get into their camp, in my opinion. So that's all his caution was, it's just that caution.
but if you live in this community long enough, you get these flyers, and you've sent out flyers, and, you have a host committee, or you have supporters that you list, and your friends are whatever. So if you happen to see a name on that list and you happen to know that person and you respect that person, then therefore you're going to say, well, if they respect that candidate, then maybe I should look into that candidate. You don't vote for them just because that name is there. Obviously, you
I
have
would
to look
agree with
into
that.
it, so. You know, you don't, just because we are all board members, we have to be careful as to who we endorse. We don't just go choose anybody.
But we as board members aren't going to endorse anyone.
No, we don't
Right,
endorse
okay,
anyone.
right.
No, but we can support who we
That's,
want.
that, absolutely,
That's our
I agree.
constitutional
I
right.
completely agree with that.
That's a big
Support,
difference.
yes, yes.
But we don't endorse. I endorse one person,
Yourself?
no,
No?
the man up above.
So again, I think that we're all in complete agreement that as a board, we will not, or is it right to endorse a candidate?
Very good. And I gave my little update on the voucher. I have a tennis, you put me on the agenda, so I have that, but that's the biggest update, so.
Okay. We're going to take just a couple-minute break, and then we'll come back and start up our board meeting. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Germantown Municipal School District Board meeting on April 5th. At this time, I call our meeting to order. I would like to ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. At this time, Ms. Parker, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. I also want to mention at this time, one of our board members was delayed and is not here tonight. We're still hoping that she may be able to attend part of our board meeting, but Ms. Oaf was delayed and she sends her sincere apologies. Next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. Approval agenda, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Landers?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Thank you.
The agenda approval of the agenda has passed. Next is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the TLN update. Ms. Jones?
Yes, we've been very active in Nashville. We had an incredible day on the 29th, the GMSD Day on the Hill. For all of our students, we had middle school and high school students that went. We had 38, and then we had some adults that went with us, and it was an incredible day. We were able to schedule a mock session, which was a huge hit for the kids. We also were able to have time to have the kids talk to Senator Kelsey, Representative White, and Representative Thompson. They stopped by the Tennessee Library and Archives when we were actually having lunch. We had a tour of the Capitol. We took a picture with the governor, which is quite an efficient process. And we were able to actually sit in. You know, we talk about vouchers, and we actually have a resolution on our agenda tonight. And we were actually able to go sit in on the Government and Operations Committee, where they had a very lively, very animated discussion on vouchers. Representative Brooks was kind of in the hot seat when he was being asked questions. The students really thought that it was quite amazing that the gavel had to be laid down to get some order in the room. So it was just an all-around great day. We had a lot of great experience, and I want to give a big shout out to the GMC PTA. They did an outstanding job of organizing, putting the plan together. It was just a good day. We have a bill update. I'd given a small update on the voucher bill in the work session. The Senate Bill 161 and House Bill 126 went to the Government and Operations Committee today and was amended to allow for either the Tennessee Ready testing or a nationally normed test, which is a difference from the previous bill where it was a mandated Tennessee Ready testing to make the accountability the same as public schools. It did not get voted on in this committee, so it will stay in this committee until next week. The next large or the big event where potentially it could be voted down is in the House Finance Subcommittee. So as soon as we have that date, most likely there will be a group of us that will go back to Nashville to make sure that our voices are heard, that this is a bill that we do not want to have them to pass on. And on March 21st, I actually traveled with the Shelby County group led by Stephanie Love to go up and actually go to the Education Committee for the House, and it was a very good day. We had a lot of great support. The vote did not go the way we wanted, but I definitely know that our voices were heard, and it was a good day as well. The other bill, there's a lot going on right now. There's not a lot solidified. Hopefully in the next April 17th, we'll know more. But one bill did die on the Education Committee floor today, which was a bill to amend the A through F grading. That was not necessarily the result that we wanted. We will keep fighting the fight for that and try and get that on the agenda next year as well, and maybe do some work over the summer on that. But that was not the result we wanted. And that's all I have. Any questions or, sorry, that was my report.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Next on our agenda is the board resolution opposing vouchers.
Citizens to be
Oh, I'm
heard.
sorry, I skipped over citizens to be heard. I apologize. Real quick, instructions for citizens to be heard. Citizens are asked to complete a card indicating their desire to address the Germantown Board of Education. If you have not already, you can give come up to the front and give your completed card to our executive secretary. Comments must be constructive. The school board will not entertain any disrespectful comments regarding elected officials, and citizens will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. First on citizens to be heard is Zach Taylor.
Thank you. I've come today to talk about the school site selection. I want to make, 2 points regarding that. First off, I feel the public involvement and transparency in that process was excellent, from the point that it became apparent that the citizens and voters of Germantown would not accept the Crestwind site at the far edge of the city, away from neighborhoods, all the way up through early January when it was narrowed down to the final 4 candidates. However, the point getting from those final 4 candidates to the point where we announced recently that the option will be made and voted upon today regarding the Brewer-Schaefer property, I don't feel that there's really been a good rationale for that point to get from the 4 to 1. I'm not aware of anything that's been released publicly, and in my personal inquiries with the superintendent's office, the only response I received was that the Brewer-Schaefer property scored the highest amongst the scorecards completed in early January, which I had understood and I think were intended to really just narrow the field from 20 to 4. If those scorecards were indeed the deciding factor for this monumental decision, I urge you each to reconsider the validity of that process. The top 2 sites were separated by a mere 3 points, which could have been swayed by a 1-point difference on the location field, for example, in which Warlick and Brewer-Schaefer were scored the same. I think it's tough to justify saying that the location of both of those sites is equally advantageous, especially given the criteria, which had a lot to do with contiguity to neighborhoods, to neighborhood streets, and being central to the population that it'll serve. There are other things in there, which you've all probably seen in my email, where I feel there's other indicators of bias towards having a site like Brewer-Schaefer on the east side of the city. But I urge you to really reconsider whether that process, getting to the final decision to propose making the offer on the Brewer-Schaefer site, is the right decision for our students and for our communities. Second, to the extent that we do move forward with putting a school site at the Brewer-Schaefer property, I'd urge you all to do everything in your power to at least preserve some semblance of a community feeling from the school that's so far from a lot of the neighborhoods it'll be serving and not connected to them by existing infrastructure, by making sure that it is served by bike and pedestrian infrastructure, that it is accessible safely and easily by foot and by bike to all the students who will be zoned to that school. And to the extent putting a school out there means rezoning the district from a north-south perspective, making sure that there's ways for students to safely cross Poplar north to south so that they can also commute to school by bike or foot. I think this is going to, create cost efficiencies for the school and that we're not paying for buses. And also, again, to just preserve some sense of community and neighborhood from putting a school so far and not contiguous to any of the neighborhoods that it'll be serving. I think that that's just absolutely critical to enable those students to get to school by bike or by foot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. That was exactly 3 minutes.
Yes, good time.
Next citizen to be heard is Bill Irby.
I can hum for you.
Thank you for letting me come up here. I'm just wanting to kind of cover a few questions. That my understanding, I was notified 48 hours ago about a resolution to maybe give away your rights for negotiating to the mayor. So I would like to address this. A couple questions is this particular resolution, does it bring us a transparent and open process, and does it include multiple board members, educators, and people with different gifts and talents? Or is it going to be a process in which we're all kind of still in the dark, not really knowing much, and then boom, we're going to get an answer? Everyone on the board, you're special, not as in special needs, but you're special, and you have gifts and talents that people appreciated and put you on there for education. And my main thing on this is I'm asking you to do your job, and do not give that away to a mayor that's got his hands full, is part-time. I mean, you guys are who we elected for this, and I'm just asking for you guys to stay involved. As a quick reminder, when we look at the school process that we just went through, you know, which was better, the one that took 1.5 years and very limited people were handling that, or the process where you guys were involved, and the process where other people were involved, and we got different points of views, angles, just like was previously discussed. I would really hope that we would lean to a more transparent process with this. To me, it's clear the reason for this resolution. There seems to be some question on the legality of y'all giving away your duties, or the mayor even has the legal right to do this. I just think we really need to go back and take a look at this. I really want you guys involved. I really do. And, you know, and I'm going to stop here, but I do know that, you know, obviously one of the members had a meeting, and Dorsey basically indicated he was open. He was open to his board, you guys getting together, and let's have a discussion. Let's partner. As a longtime citizen of Germantown, I don't like the us versus them. Kids in Shelby County in that particular school district are just as important as the kids in the GMSD. And we need to look to partner together and find a way to make this happen. We have 2 beautiful schools sitting there that the kids can walk to. And we need to really make this happen. So anyway, I appreciate y'all's ear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Irby. Next citizen to be heard is Alderman Dean Massey.
Thank you, Board, for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm here, like Mr. Irby, to speak on the resolution to delegate some of your responsibilities to the city. Whether it's me, the mayor, or our full Board of Aldermen, I think giving us the leadership role in these negotiations could give the city an undue influence in this decision. You have our superintendent, you have our city administrator who's being added to the negotiating team, and the city is the funding source for those gentlemen's salaries. And I just think having the city take a lead role in this just has too much potential to allow us to have too much influence over this decision. The chair has expressed a willingness to defer to the mayor, and I would ask that you not. I would ask that you not defer to the mayor, that you not defer to me, or that you not defer to anyone else in either the legislative or executive branch. I want to see a strong board. You guys are great at what you do. So don't let me or anyone else try to take any of your power away. You guys can do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Massey. Next citizen to be heard is Meg Jackson.
Good evening. I'd like to express my concerns over the resolution on the agenda this evening, the resolution for negotiating the purchase of Germantown Elementary and Germantown Middle Schools. It goes without saying that these schools are important to the community. The efforts by this board to make a substantive effort to acquire them is greatly appreciated. I think it is wonderful that our city's leaders and school board work well together. However, I do not feel that the city's mayor nor its administrator should be given any control in the negotiations for school property. The legality of one elected body ceding authority to another is questionable. If this were to happen in other areas of government, we would be inviting chaos. The responsibilities for school site selection and building construction rest solely with the Board of Education for good reason. Each of the board members in front of me was chosen, either by vote or appointment, based on her skills, experience, and dedication to doing what is best for the children of this district and the county. I cannot say the same thing of the city's leaders, since they were chosen based on a different set of criteria, the ability to govern and manage a city. It has come to the public's attention this week that the mayor has potentially been acting improperly and without authority in the talks so far. I am deeply disappointed that this board would feel it is unqualified to lead and take ownership of these conversations with the Shelby County Board of Education. The city's involvement in the fiasco with the Crestwin site showed us all that the goals of the city and the goals of the school district are not always aligned. I would urge the board to reject the resolution as written, take the lead, use the resources you have sitting here in front of me, and please do the job that you were chosen to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Next citizen to be heard is Layla Rouse.
Hello, my name is Layla Rouse, and this is the first time I have ever spoken up at a meeting like this. So I did not prepare any comments, but I just wanted to first off thank you for everything that you've been doing and for your commitment to the schools. I have 2 children, everybody here probably does, and we want to thank you for your efforts and your due diligence. I also would like to make a comment about this new resolution. I too just heard about it recently, and I would like to strongly recommend that you guys continue to stay involved in the process. This is why we voted for you. This is why you're here, is to give us guidance and insight into the schools, all of the schools, current and new. So I concur with all the comments and the sentiment that was stated earlier, that I really truly believe that you guys should stay involved in the process. All of you have a specific skill set. You all bring valuable information to the table. I do not believe that something that this large should be deferred to just 2 individuals. It really does take a village. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rouse. Thank you to all the citizens for speaking tonight. Next on our agenda is the board resolution opposing vouchers. Our board has strongly opposed vouchers and the opportunity scholarships. At our last work session, we asked Ms. Landers to develop a resolution for us. Thank you, Ms. Landers, for all of your work. Are there some comments by the board about the resolution?
I will echo what I said in the work session, that this could not be more timely, given the ramp-up of the voucher bill and its its momentum that it has, I think this is a message that we do need to send, and I greatly appreciate the work that Mrs. Landers did on it. It's not an easy task to craft something that can very easily solidify our message to not only our community, but to the legislators as well.
Any other comments? Do I have a motion to pass the board resolution opposing vouchers and opportunity scholarships?
I move to pass the motion for the resolution for the opposing vouchers and opportunity scholarships.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Landers?
A resounding yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion is passed. Next on our agenda is the awarding of the bid for the purchase and delivery of the HVAC rooftop units for Houston High School.
Just give the public a little background on this bid package. The board is well aware. This is a bid package to replace 138 rooftop units right here at Houston High School, as well as all of the exhaust fans that are on the roof, curb adapters, and convenience outlets as well. We're actually recommending a split awarding of this bid, where we are awarding the majority of this bid to M&A Supply for 137 of the units. We are also recommending an awarding to Mills Wilson George for one of the units, which is kind of a specialty unit that only they bid, as well as all of the exhaust fans. And that is going to be our recommendation to the board for the purchase of these units.
I do want to thank Mr. Cathy and Mr. Law. The information prepared for this is very detailed, and allowing us to purchase to, like you said, the rooftop units. We avoid sales tax, as well as they can get them at a more discounted rate. They're not bumped up by the contractor. So thank you, Mr. Cathy, for all of your work on this. Do I have a motion to approve the bid for the purchase and delivery of HVAC rooftop units at Houston High School?
I move to approve the awarding of bid number FY 170042 for the purchase and delivery of the HVAC rooftop units at Houston High School in the amount of $446,861.44 to M&A Supply Company for the items 1 through 23, item 31, and item 32. And I also move to approve the awarding in the amount of $42,499 to Mills Wilson George for item number 24 through 30.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to say this takes us, congratulate this board. This is another check off on our capital improvement. So congratulations.
Roll call?
Ms. Landers?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion is passed. This summer, there'll be rooftop units that will be replaced at Houston High School. Next on the agenda is the awarding of the bid for the HVAC installation at Houston High School.
Same project. We bid the units, as Ms. Fisher stated, differently because that gives the district the ability to purchase directly from distributors. So we do a separate bid package for the installation of the rooftop units. We are recommending to award to the low bidder in this case, which was Damon Marcus Company, in the amount of $523,914 to complete the full install of the rooftop units, curb adapters, convenience outlets, and exhaust fans, all of the installation for the project.
Do I have a motion?
I move.
Oh,
No,
go
no,
ahead.
no, sorry.
Go right ahead.
I move to approve the awarding of bid number FY 170038 for HVAC installations at Houston High School in the amount of $523,914 to Damon Marcus Company.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Obviously, if we've already awarded a bid to purchase them, we do need to award a bid to install them.
Yes.
Roll call?
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
And again, I do want to thank Mr. Kathy and Aaron Law. The detail that they went into to replace these units was very extensive. Next on our agenda is awarding of the bid for painting at Farmington Elementary School.
This bid, we had 2 respondents. I went over this with the board, but this is for the painting of all of the interior and exterior paintable spaces at Farmington Elementary School. It's been our recommendation in the operations department that we really get on a rotating schedule where we are painting one school a year every 5. We've got 5 schools. 5 years is about the right timeline to be painting, and we really need to include that in our capital plan on a yearly basis and rotate our schools. And when we get the 6th school, we need to throw that in the rotation as well. But this is our first school that we have done a painting bid package for the district, and I would like to get us on a rotating schedule moving forward. So this is for painting of all interior and exterior areas at Farmington Elementary School. We only had 2 respondents, and there was a marked difference in those responses. We're recommending the low bidder, which is Brandon Construction, in the amount of $122,317.
Do I have a motion to award the bid for painting at Farmington Elementary?
I move to approve the awarding of bid FY 170041 for painting at Farmington Elementary School in the amount of $122,317 to Brandon Construction LLC.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
This is also another one of our checkoff lists. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Landers?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the resolution for negotiating the purchase of Germantown Elementary and Germantown Middle Schools.
And I'd like to go through what we presented at the work session, because I think there were people who weren't here who would benefit from hearing kind of the history of what has happened with the negotiations for these projects. Okay, I was hired, and within the first week, I was working with former school board member Ken Hoover to try to acquire Germantown Elementary School and Germantown Middle School back for our district. It was one of the things that was decided in the resolution with Judge Mays. So we actually met at Stephen Shields' office where Jackson Shields Geiser Holt, which is our law firm, and we were discussing the potential offer. We then had a meeting with Superintendent Hobson where we were presenting different options. We were talking about the ability to work with them, partner with them, and say whatever they wanted to do with transfers of students, with teachers, we would be willing to work with them on that process. And Superintendent Hobson said at that time they were unwilling to negotiate. He actually walked over to his window, he pulled back the curtain, and there were the parents out there who were intense trying to get into the schools because they were optional schools, and it's kind of like a concert where you camp out and get your ticket. And he said, as long as I have parents who are willing to come, these schools have value for me. That at that time he was unwilling to negotiate for those schools. Second year of the district, I actually reached out to Superintendent Hobson. We had a plan for them. We were looking at their financial document that actually showed their capacity numbers in each of their schools. And we were showing them ways that they could get students closer to their homes, closer to where they live, and they would save costs with busing, but then also it would allow us to purchase Germantown Elementary School. We had geocoding, we had where the students live. We really were sharing information that we're trying to be a win-win for both districts And we were looking at ways that they could save, because you have administrator savings, you have a principal at each school, assistant principals, you have a plant manager, you have utility costs. That's over $1.5 million in savings for schools. And so we were looking at ways that we could work with them. He also shared that, or actually Chairman Linda Fisher shared that with Teresa Jones, who was the board chair at the time for Shelby County Schools, and at that time they were unwilling to negotiate. Then a few months after they started going through their budget process, and it was making the news that they had an $8 million deficit in their budget, we actually worked with the city in this case to go down and actually make an offer for them. We had Commissioner Billingsley, who was very helpful in this process. He actually made a recommendation during their budget process that they could work with Germantown schools to really make ends meet and come up with that $8 million operating cost at that time. The Shelby County Commission decided to fully fund those schools, and they made up that $8 million deficit, that $8 million increase for Shelby County schools out of their reserve. So then, after that time, the city actually made a written offer for Germantown Elementary School, Germantown Middle School, and Shelby County Schools was unwilling to negotiate. Year 3 comes around, and Linda Fisher, board chair, and myself actually attend a breakfast with Chris Caldwell to discuss again. We're still interested. We still want to purchase Germantown Elementary School, Germantown Middle School. And Mayor Palazzo was actually working with us to try to make this a reality and talk about what would be an appropriate amount to offer them. Chris Caldwell at that time asked that discussions would resume May 2nd because they're going through 2 processes. One, their budget process, but also they're working with the county commission to try to look at their appropriate footprint. So they have a study that's being done by Fleming Architects to right-size the district and look at schools. They have made a request to the county commission to actually build several schools, close several schools. That's in the work right now. We're optimistic that Shelby County's board chair is working with city administration and GMSD's executive committee, but it's our recommendation that we continue on the dual path. So that's kind of the history of Germantown schools. I would like to clarify something in this process. In no way would I ever recommend giving away the school board's authority, or do I think that Ms. Fisher would recommend that? We want to be the driving force for the school negotiating and how this process works. But we realize that it has to be a partnership with the city, because as a board, we cannot take on debt. We cannot offer an amount of money that's not in our realm of authority. So I would have no issue in clarifying that in the resolution to say with the mayor and city administrator in that last be it further resolved statement that they are going to be appropriating the funding and really assisting us in that aspect of it, not the actual negotiations with the city. So in no way would I be recommending that we would be giving up our authority to do that. I would like to clarify, though, that the city does have the authority to buy land. The city administration does have the authority to buy buildings. They can do that. They can use them for whatever purpose they want, whether it's a rec center, whether it's for administration. They can go out and negotiate. So the Crestwind is a perfect example of that. The city administration could go out and they could say, hey, we've got an option on this property. Then at that point, that's where they handed it over to the board and said, is this a property that we would be willing to use for a school site? And I think appropriately our board decided that that was not the solution. We wanted to garner community input in this process, but they do have the authority to do that. It is this board's role to then say, no, we do not want to use that for a school. Yes, we do want to use that for a school.
I also want to say the purpose of this resolution was really to confirm to our community that we are serious about obtaining our heritage schools. Tonight, we are voting on property. I don't want the community to think that because we're voting on property, we are not going to continue to obtain our schools. And that is what this resolution is about.
So I'm working with Ms. Owens on the language just so we can be clear of our role in this process versus the city's role in this process. So in that last, be it further resolved, and I'll let Ms. Owens explain the language that would clarify that.
If you would like to be very precise in your resolution, in that final paragraph, the final paragraph, on the last line, where it begins, "of education and the Board of Mayor," if you want to be precise, dividing the authority between the city and this board, then I would suggest you add between and the, I would suggest you add appropriate funding by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, because that actually is the role of the city. Your whereas statements make it very clear that the authority resides in this board. That last sentence, last section could be a little bit more precise if you added those words.
Do you want to repeat that one more time, just to make sure everybody has it?
In the final paragraph, be it further resolved, on the final line of that paragraph, I would suggest that you say, "of education and appropriate funding by."
Did everybody get that? Got it. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution for negotiating the purchase of Germantown Elementary and Germantown Middle Schools?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are we moving to approve as written or as just
As amended.
recommended
As amended.
amendment?
As recommended.
So as amended?
Yes.
Second.
Is there discussion?
Yes. I've been asking, since joining the board, kind of what our strategy was, what we would be doing as it related to Shelby County schools, and I don't understand why we need this document. I understand making a statement to our community. I think a strong statement from the board here of just saying we are committed to negotiating. I don't know why we have to get into setting up a negotiating team, limiting who those people could be, worrying about whether we have the right people involved. Do we have something where we might want to bring someone else in? Are we closed in by that? If the school board is functioning as a very strong school board, we would be leading these negotiations, and we would be including the people that we need, the mayor, the city administrator, the aldermen, members of administrative staff. We would be including, community leaders if we need to, of getting ideas and options, but I don't understand why we need this document to say that. The other thing I would say is and we can say it's the funding, but when we specifically say who should be on the negotiating team, I think we are ceding a little bit of our power, because we are giving those members that we name to the team equal value at the negotiating table. Versus if we limit it to just the school board as the negotiating team and then bringing in others. I am a member of the school board. As I've been told, and I've been in training, that my vote counts as much as everyone else's on the school board, no matter which position we may hold. Yet, this is the first time I've received this level of detail of what the negotiations have been. And I will tell you quite honestly, seeing that the last conversation that was had by our chair and our superintendent with anyone from Shelby County was in December about sitting down to negotiate. That's a long time to go without having those conversations and building relationships and bringing people together. I just think you need to touch people a little bit more than that. As I've said before, any offer or discussion or negotiation with Shelby County is more about the brick and mortar. It's about the students. It's about all of the students in Shelby County and GMSD. And as we saw with Winchester, the city does a great job managing the city. Maybe not so much as far as what we need for students. And I think to say that we're just now going to start the conversation of what the students' impact could be, I just think we should be more of a lead in that.
I would like to
Well,
clarify.
I'm still going, I'm sorry.
sorry.
I'm not sorry, I just have a few things. The other thing that, when I look at this and I see the energy and I see the passion that our superintendent wants for these schools and has for the kids that are in our district, and I know that that could benefit, and I know that it could be a win-win, I don't necessarily know that we, using that loosely with the negotiating team that has been in place, have the positive outlook that says we can make this happen. I hate to take the Grizzlies, mantra, but we need to believe. We need to believe that we can come to the table and walk away with a solution. And I have heard, unfortunately, too many times by those who are currently having those negotiations that they don't necessarily believe. Articles in the commercial appeal, we don't believe. So I would say that if we truly want this to happen, if we really want to make a good faith effort to make this be an option, we should really look at the work we've done with our site selection. And I'm not saying it needs to be 20 people, I'm not saying it needs to be that big, but we need to open it up to new ways of thinking, creative ideas. What can we do to make things differently? You look at, it's changed. And I agree with you, Mr. Manuel, when you look at where you were and all the work you've done in this list, you have hit roadblocks. And I'm not going to disagree that you haven't, but I do believe over the last 2 years, energy and emotions have changed. And you look at the things that Shelby County has been able to accomplish with iZone and looking at doing equitable funding for their schools. I mean, they are trying things differently. They are looking at things differently. And I think that we should take advantage of that, and we should take advantage of looking at our negotiation differently. We're going down two paths. We are saying we're going down two paths. We're going to look at a new school. We're going to look at negotiating for the, I say, GES and GMS, we should shoot big. But I don't see the amount of energy being spent equally and equitably on both of those paths. I see a lot of powerful energy on the land site selection, the amount of energy and the knowledge that we have, the information that we gathered. But when you look at the energy spent on the negotiations, I see this list, but there's not that much happening during this since December. And I think, could we do more? Could we as a board utilize all of our skills to brainstorm on what could our strategy be? Maybe what has worked in the past isn't working because it's not the right path. Maybe we need to take an opportunity to look at doing things differently. So I would say that, therefore, if we feel strongly that we need a resolution to make a statement, I would have moved to amend the resolution by substituting the wording beginning authorizes in the now, therefore it is resolved paragraph, and ending with the words negotiate, and I would substitute in the GMSD superintendent, one Germantown Board of Education board member as elected by the Germantown Board of Education, and one alderman as appointed by the City of Germantown Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Can you repeat that, please?
Would you like me to hand it down to you?
You wanted to read it again to the public?
Yes. I can, or I guess you can, or I can.
Since you are making the motion, I want
Yes.
you to read it, please. So you want to amend the motion, right? Amend the resolution.
Amend the resolution as it is currently stated, because we did not amend that paragraph, correct? We amended the other paragraph. And it is the paragraph that starts, now therefore it be resolved. And we start deleting the words after authorizes all the way through to negotiate. And I would move to add the words in the GMSD superintendent, one Germantown Board of Education board member as elected by the Germantown Board of Education, and one alderman as appointed by the City of Germantown Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And I can say that again if you need me to.
Yes, please.
Okay.
We'll just pass it, yes.
Okay.
You can put it.
Okay, now,
I got it. Thank you.
Okay. The motion has been amended.
No,
Oh,
she has, we need a vote. She has, that's the,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
okay. You said
Yeah.
motion has been amended, so
Yeah.
I was like.
No, I'm saying Ms. Jones has amended
yes,
She's made a
our
motion.
resolution.
made a motion to, excuse me, to amend.
And so everybody's clear on the motion to amend? Do I have a second? There is no second. The motion has failed. We're back to the amended motion. Do you want to repeat that again, just so everybody knows? We're back to the original amended one.
It's just amended by,
If I-
I hear inappropriate funding.
In the last paragraph, after the Germantown Board of Education and the three words added are appropriate funding body, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Germantown.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
you have
No, I haven't. I'm sorry. Discussion.
Ms. Lander seconded it, right?
I'm not great on resolutions. Resolutions are just pieces of paper that we file, but Suzanne, I love your optimism and your passion. But one thing I know is, how many times do you get your face slammed in the door? I remember when we first started and Ken Hoover said, I'm going to get these schools back, I'm going to get them back, I'm going to get them back. And he went out with the same passion and enthusiasm as you did, and we got nothing. And every time we go, we get nothing. And I know the reason why we get nothing. And I know that, and so therefore we lose that enthusiasm and we move it over to our own schools. And that's where we need to be. Or that's where I need to be. So, and of course, we're going to spend a lot of money to build schools because we are overcrowded, because Germantown is the place to be, is because we are doing great things. You know, for some reason I got an email today that said we're not doing great things, but we are. And I believe that we are. We have an excellent superintendent, we have an excellent school board, and we are doing great things. But one of the things the community wants us to do is get those schools back. And we are trying. You've tried, you know. So this team that we are putting together is a team of the superintendent and the chairman and the administrator of the city and the mayor, which are two roles very much the same. But they don't go off on their own. They come back to their bodies and they ask for the approvals once they have negotiated. Either they get their door slammed in their face again, or we come back and negotiate from whatever. But I think throwing a whole lot of people into the mix is not a really good idea. And I know I know your passion, I know your enthusiasm, I know, but I think this is a resolution to say to the community, we are trying. We are still trying. And you are trying, and I appreciate that enthusiasm. So I hope that this tells the community that we are doing what we need to do. But I also know that there's some, when these individuals got up tonight and spoke about the mayor's authority, I've been off Facebook for a while, and maybe I should stay off of it, but I had no idea that everyone thought that the mayor had so much power over us. The mayor doesn't even vote. He is very much similar to Mr. Manuel, our superintendent. He's the one who guides us and puts us in the right direction, but if we want to go a different direction, we have all the power to do just that. One of the aldermen has asked for opinions. He's gotten 4 legal opinions on whether or not we can negotiate and buy land and do what we need to do. We know that we can, but these legal opinions are all saying that the mayor has not acted in any way that is illegal. And I don't understand why we don't have faith in our city, why we don't have, it just boggles me. Germantown is an awesome place to be. Our sales tax is great, our properties increases, our schools are awesome, but we just nitpick the heck out of everything. I just hope we can come to some conclusion about something.
Well, I would like to address a couple of those points, Lisa. And I understand that you get the door slammed in your face, and boy, have I in my career. But I will tell you that every time I put a team out on the court that can't win a game, I for sure don't say, don't bother going out there because there's no way you're going to win that.
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, it appears that when we say we've had the door slammed in our face, why do we keep going that route? It sounds to me like that. And what I'm trying to say is we should say, yes, that hasn't worked. So maybe we should change our plan of attack. Because maybe the mayor going off and writing an offer for $5 million last May without the consultation of our board isn't the way that we need to operate. And I think that is what has spurred
You
this.
weren't here last May, so you don't know what the mayor did.
Well, I've asked questions, and unless what I've been told is not appropriate, then that.
I'm
but
sorry,
that's fine. But all I'm saying is that when the city, and that's why our community is asking, because it hasn't been clarified, it hasn't been transparent, and it has not appeared that our board has taken the lead. Many times I have said in the conversations, and we actually have transcripts from our last January meeting where I was told to cease and desist and was publicly reprimanded, that it was the mayor's responsibility and we would wait for him to come back to us. And I don't agree with that. And I think, it's a step in the right direction that we're acknowledging that the legal opinion is that we should be a strong board and we should take the lead. But by putting in a resolution that the part of the negotiating team is the city and the mayor, I don't know that that makes us stronger. I think it appears that we are seceding our authority. And so I'm just asking that we truly take the lead, that we have negotiations, that it's actually conversations, multiple, that our board has. And I agree with you, Lisa. I think everybody comes back for a vote. Winchester came for a vote. They went to the vote for the BMA. They came to us for a vote. It's understanding what's going on before it comes to a vote. What conversations are being had? Could we add some input? What's happening out there? What are the concerns that we're encountering? That's a part of negotiation, but that's not the offer. And I think there's a distinction there that we might be getting caught up in, is that you don't have to walk in with a dollar amount. You can walk in with just having ideas. And that's where I'm saying pulling people together would be beneficial. I agree. When you get to the point and you look at our land purchase, right? We had a lot of ideas. You come up and you say, this is what we think would work best for us. But when it came down to the money and negotiating the money, that group got a lot smaller. And I have no problem with that. But I think there's so many more intangibles to this deal than the dollar. And that's where I see us lacking as a strong school board, is being very involved in that and coming up with a plan, to think out of the box, to believe we can make it happen, to what is it that you need, how can we help, how can we partner. And if we get the door slammed in our face again, it won't be for the lack of trying, and it won't be for the lack of faith trying and believing that we can get there.
Thank you, Chairman Fisher. Suzanne, I share your enthusiasm and your optimism. After all, my children went to school in the 3 Gs. I lived south of the tracks, as everyone in Germantown likes to say. Those schools are important to us, and so I share the community's desire to obtain those again. But I also want to add that I think the language, I personally appreciate what I consider clear language of this resolution. And I do think it's important that we consider it on behalf of our community to reassure them that we are committed to moving forward with obtaining these schools. Oftentimes, the discussions that we have during work sessions are mischaracterized when taken out of context. And I think it's important to emphasize that the negotiations for the namesake schools, for the 2 Gs in this case, will require a partnership between the city administration and our school board. We do not have the ability to take on debt or to fund this project. We must rely on their financial support. And I want to thank everyone who took the time to come out tonight and to share with us how you feel. You reach out to us, you take the time to come speak to us, and it really is important that we always consider what you bring to the table. You elected us to serve you, and that's something no one up here ever forgets. And while I do trust the current negotiating team that does include the mayor, I am very happy to clarify for the record that I in no way wish to cede any authority or power of this school board in making the decisions about a possible negotiation for the namesake schools. It is our job to do what is best for the children of this community.
I also want to go back to merger and demerger. Back then, it's over 3 years ago, our superintendent and our board went through that maze. Do the teachers come with the schools? Do we have to rehire them? What do we do with students from Collierville? What do we do with the students from Cordova? And we went through that maze, and we made the right decisions as a district, as a board, and a superintendent. And I'm confident that we will do that again when working to obtain the 2 Gs. As far as conversations, Chairman Caldwell asked that we wait until they got through their footprint analysis. At that time, they are determining where they're going with their schools. They're looking at what schools need to be closed, where schools need to be. Their population in the city is changing. And they wanted to get through their footprint analysis to see what direction they were going. And he asked for us to wait until they were through that. Have we had some conversations? Yes. We have touched base with him on an ongoing basis, but he does not want to sit down and discuss anything until they get through their footprint analysis and as their budget process. Roll call.
Ms. Landers?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
No.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion is passed. Next on our agenda is the approval of the land purchase for the new school. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Manuel and Ms. Landers. Ms. Landers was our representative on the site analysis committee.
So we're going to kind of tag team the process that we went through. Like I said during the work session, I think that this has been exemplary work to get all the input from the citizens of Germantown. I think that they have spoken very clearly through this process, and we've heard lots of different opinions, but I think we did have a clear consensus on what the number one property was. But just to clarify, we are currently in possession of 3 different legal opinions that the school board does have complete authority to buy and purchase this school. We had these when we went through the Riverdale project, because at that time we did have discussions with the city of Germantown as far as what would be their role. And so we actually had a debate about whether they would be the ones who would be putting in the bid out for the project, whether they would be managing it, choosing the vendors, and then deeding it over to us. And at that time, both attorneys for the city of Germantown and for the school board went and looked at legal precedents, and they determined that we have complete authority to do this. So I'd like to clear that up before we go through this process. But what have we done as far as community engagement? We have had a large number of residents who have attended the different opportunities for us. In September of 2016, we had our first community forum. We had a lot of people from the community who come, and we were looking at the first sites that the city had identified. In October of 2016, there was a criteria survey that not only looked at the properties that we were using, but that survey actually went out to the community and said, what is the most importance to you? Is it safety? Is it location? So there was a detailed survey that went out. We also had a second forum and a public site perception survey. But there were lots of documents from both surveys that gathered input. During the second forum, there was actually a lot more detail because there were open-ended questions about each of the top 4 sites that our site selection committee or site analysis committee had identified. This was one component of the school board's decision. They were weighing the site analysis committee work, which we really went out and got experts, and we really leveraged the different commissions that the city has, and also the people who had been elected in our schools, our PTA presidents for this. But the school board was taking into account all of their information and also the survey information. All of this can also be found online. So if you click on the picture of the shovel, you can see the results. I'd like to clarify, this is not multiple copies of that information. These are all of the survey results. These are all of the graphs and charts that we have gotten and gathered through this process. This is also available online for all the residents to see. How did people feel about each of the properties? And our school board also received electronic copies of this. So we have, I think, gone through an extensive 6-month process to really gauge the community's interest on the potential sites. One of the things that was important in this process was the actual board's input. Like we talk about who has the authority to decide this. We went through an extensive process where we actually looked at the criteria. What does safety mean? So if people are voting on it, we have to define what is safety. We have to define location. We had to define topography. We went through a very detailed board meeting to look at all those issues to decide what is the criteria.
And you're interfering with my time.
Okay, I'm coming. And in December...
You're stealing her thunder.
I'm keep coming. And in December, the board voted to adopt that prioritized list. Ms. Crowder, you can go. Here's an example of what we did. Once again, this is online, so you can see not only is it a description of each of those, it also has a prioritized list with the points that the school board could use to gauge the different scores.
it Ms. Landers' turn now?
It is.
Well,
So
Yeah.
one of
It's like,
the
I don't
things
think
that
else
was,
to say.
I think, important was Ms. Landers was really serving as the board's representative on the site analysis committee. And with that, Ms. Landers, I'm sorry, I stole your thunder.
no, there was just a communication hitch about which slides I was doing.
Okay, sorry.
Kate, that's okay, I read my emails. To tag on to what the superintendent said, a lot went into that first timeline that you saw. And the committee, thank you, it does show you the timeline. And beginning with that October meeting, the Site Analysis Committee began its task. And during that meeting, we got to know each other a little bit better, and we discussed what our goals were, what our charge was given to us to accomplish. And we also discussed the results of the forum on the potential site for the new elementary school, and went ahead and set dates and assigned homework. At our November work session, the board discussed the criteria we felt was important for the Site Analysis Committee to consider, as well as what we felt needed to be done to develop a weighted rubric. So in choosing the criteria, we felt most important in choosing a site, we studied examples, and I think it's important to share with you that we did research. The staff was wonderful about giving us examples of criteria, rubrics from California Department of Education, from the Albuquerque Public Schools. And during that interim, as board members, we also did our own research on different sites. I know one of the things that I shared with the board were the Safe Routes to School briefing sheets on sites for schools. We also talked at length about giving weight to what we considered the results and the opinions offered by the community. We felt that that was very critical as we moved forward in putting together what we considered would be our criteria, which you saw on that slide. Anyway,
She's going back.
she's going back?
Yeah, she's trying to.
Okay. The criteria in the form of a weighted rubric was officially adopted
There
by
it
the
is.
board December the 5th. Okay, now I need the rubric side. Okay. Should be noted that the rubric was weighted according to what we as a board felt was the greatest importance considering a property for the site of our new elementary school. And as the superintendent mentioned, safety was by far what we considered of greatest importance. Next slide. The timeline here shows the meetings of the Site Analysis Committee. In November, we addressed the questions posed from the previous meeting. As a group at that first meeting, we had talked about eminent domain. Was it something that we could use? Was the city willing to consider it? We talked about city parks and would they be viable sites and what was the city opinion and stance on that. We discussed all 15 properties that were initially brought to us, and we began eliminating those in November that were no longer available to us, that it either had contracts on them or the property owners had definitely said, no, we won't even entertain an offer. We reviewed the sample site analysis committee notes on the 2 properties. So there were very detailed notes on each of the remaining properties, but we did an example, we did a model. And from that, we were given the homework to go home during the month of December, go online, look at all of the remaining properties, there were 9 remaining to be considered, and to add our comments, pros and cons, or for some of the experts on the committee to add what they felt needed to be in there for us to consider. So that was kind of our December homework. We went live. We had the live task of editing what you see before you and the rubric scoring of the 9 properties. So what does that bring us to? You already passed the members of the committee, and I would like to thank the fellow members of the committee. I know Sherry Hicks is here. She sat on it as one of the representatives, PTA presidents who represented the community. It was a committee made up of a lot of experts who brought their talent and their expertise to it, and I think that it really was an amazing process to go through. The last slide is probably what I consider one of the most important pieces of the work that often gets lost in the discussion of this. And that is the actual scoring that we as a committee did of each of the properties utilizing the rubric approved by the Board of Education. This slide shows you really, literally, how we each individually blind scored each property. We would put the slide up on the screen of the property with the various notes that were created specifically for each property. They were notes regarding the pros and cons, procurement and finance, fire and police, public works, engineering, and architecture. So there was a lot of detail associated. We also had overview maps of each of the properties. We took the opportunity to have very brief time of questions, and then we scored them. And why I think this is so important is there was not discussion to try to sway an opinion or to convince someone to vote your way. This truly was all of us sitting there scoring these in real time, and they were tallied electronically in real time. That's why I feel this is important to share with you, is because the properties that came out in the order that they did, it was, I know Amy and I had many discussions on the Crestwind property. And if you go back and you look at what is online, you will see it naturally fell to the bottom. The rubric worked, the committee worked, and it made a huge difference, I think, in how we approach this. The last piece of this puzzle was to present the 4 properties to the school board for their consideration. And I wanted to share with you that on January the 25th, the entire school board, accompanied with Superintendent Manuel, Mr. Cathy, and a number of staff, actually went to each of the properties and walked it. So all the final 4 properties, we got out and hiked all 4 of them, which was truly an adventure on some of them, so that we would, when we took this moment to vote, to make the final choice, we knew without question what we were talking about so that we could do the very best that we could in finding a site for our new elementary school. And now it's your turn.
And I think it's important to talk about the site selection and how it came up. So not only was Brower Schaefer the highest ranked property, that was one piece of the puzzle. The school board was also looking at the community feedback. And by far, the Brower Schaefer was the most popular property. Warlick also had a lot of votes, which was the second ranked property that we saw, but it also had a very large number of people who were voting against it, that should be the site that's eliminated. So based on that, the school board gave the board chair and myself the ability to go out and negotiate for this top property. And you can see some of the pictures online, 2 of this property, and like I said during the work session, this was the one that as the board walked out into this property and looked at where it was, it really had that feel of this is the right place for our school. So where do we go from here? I think it's important to say this is the first step in the process, even though it feels like we've gone through a whole lot of work to get to this point. But all we're doing at this point is really locking in the price and signing this contract. The next step for us, we've already been presented, or I already presented to the Financial Advisory Committee of the city. They did approve $27 million for this project. And that's only one step. That body makes a recommendation to the BMA. And so they will be voting on this process. And then also, as we go through the design of this school, we have to go through several commissions in the city. We will have to go before the Planning Commission, the Board of Zoning and Appeals, and the Design Review Commission. And all those steps have chances for the community to give input and talk about how this school is designed, how it fits on the property, how it impacts the neighbors. All those things are part of this process going forward. And with that, that concludes really the history of what we have gone through for this process. So it is the district administration's recommendation to approve the contract that we negotiated, and I talked about some of the details during the work session. It is a purchase price of $3.1 million. It does have earnest money of $30,000 that is put down, and we have that period of really the first 90 days in order for the Germantown Elementary School negotiations to continue. We will be at the same time going through the design process where we have another commission, another committee that we will come back to the board to share that information on our progress so far. But that is our recommendation to approve this contract.
Thank you, Mr. Manuel and Ms. Landers, for your presentation. Do I have a motion to approve the contract?
I move to approve the contract to purchase real estate and escrow, the contract to purchase real estate and escrow agreement for the Brower Schaefer properties in the amount of $3.1 million.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I'd like to say a big thank you to Mrs. Landers. She stepped in quick to do this analysis and really went above and beyond, I think, as did our entire committee. I would say that when you look at how this process worked, it is, in my opinion, the epitome of how our school board shows its strength and shows how well it can work on its own. And if you look at how we are going to the city now, we've done all our work. We were the leaders. We were gathering the information, and we're not engaging the city, even though they are our funding body, until now, until we feel like we have what we think is a great offer that we want to make, and we go to them and ask for the funding. I think this template is something that we could definitely use in every aspect of things that we might encounter. And I would say with the negotiations with Shelby County, I do believe that we have two paths. We've gone down this path, and I can't speak highly enough of this property. It is awestruck when you go out and walk on it. It is ready to build on. I think it is going to be a fabulous site if we need a new school. And I would say that if we could continue this same type of process going forward, we will continue to show the strength of our board. And I think this is the template, and a great job is done.
I just want to say, looking back on our board meeting on September 16th, and the vote that we had as a board to gather more information before moving ahead on a school site, there were a lot of comments from the board members and our community. And some of those included, this is an exciting time for our community, and we want our parents to be comfortable and confident about our decision. We need time to make a better and informed decision on a site. This new school will be here for years to come. Listen, take the input, and make a wise decision. And the Board of Education voted that night to gather more information. And we asked our superintendent and district staff to begin a process to gain community input so that we could determine the best site for our school and for our students. But I do want to highlight a few key points. The Site Analysis Committee narrowed the sites down to 4, as Mr. Manuel talked about, and this was based on location, accessibility, utilities, topography, and cost and safety. And those criteria were set by our board. And we even said then, the ability to, based on the land available in our city, the ability to find a property that would fit each of those criteria would be a difficult one. The district had forums and surveys for our community. I, for one, read every one of these. I attended the forums and listened to the community. I think you also have to look at the cost to prep the sites for the building, as well as the usable space on each property. Again, we all walked the properties. We also hired an experienced demographer to look at the population forecasts to determine what demographic changes we will have in future enrollment. And this data, again, supported the need for a new elementary school. And I think most important is this contract still allows us to negotiate for the 2 Gs before there is a final land purchase. And I believe that the Brower Schaefer property is the best choice for our school system and for our students. And I look forward to this being another milestone in our school district. Thank you.
Chairman Fisher, can I take a moment of personal privilege?
Yes.
It's really just to say thank you to the superintendent, Mr. Kathy, the entire staff for their support, to my fellow school board members for entrusting me with being on the committee. It was a pleasure. Every one of the committee members worked so hard and did their due diligence in trying to select the sites for the board to consider. So I thank each of them. But as a brand-new school board member, I want to thank you. It was an awesome experience to get as much input. And you know, when you get input, you get good and bad, but I consider it all very worthwhile and important when I'm trying to make a decision. So I really want to thank the community because you took an active role. You let your voice be heard. That is the only way we're ever going to be able to make sure that our schools continue to be as amazing as they currently are. So thank you to all those that I name, and most especially to those in the community. Thank you, Chairman Fisher.
Thank you, Ms. Landers. Roll call?
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Landers?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion has passed. Last on our agenda is the miscellaneous budget amendment 59. Do you want to discuss this?
This amendment is for the board to actually pay for the architect costs that you see coming that we're predicting. That is the recommendation of the budget amendment. Mr. Cathy, I don't know if you wanted to clarify.
Yeah, excuse me, the majority of that is pulling from our fund balance reserves to pay the architects until we get the bond, and there's also $30,000 that's going to be set aside so that we can immediately, as the contract states, put that into escrow.
Thank you, Mr. Kathy. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Landers?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion is passed. Is there any new business? At this time, I'd like to make a couple announcements. April 12th at 1 p.m., we will have a budget work session at 1 p.m. in the PD room. And April 17th will be our next board meeting in City Hall. We are adjourned. Thank you.